Welcome back to News Talk. Prince George's police are in mourning this day. A 4-year veteran of the force, Officer Ja'Kai Colson, was shot and killed right outside police headquarters on Sunday. An undercover narcotics officer, Colson is being remembered for his dedication to the job. Our Prince George's Bureau Chief, Brad Bell, joins us now. Brad, you've been working the phones, talking with your sources. We are learning more about what happened. Fill us in if you could.
Yeah, a little bit of news that's just emerging here in the last couple of minutes. Police do have a third suspect in custody in connection with the initial assault on the District 3 police station. Now, 3 people in custody. We believe one of them, a man by the name of Michael Ford, has been identified, not charged officially yet as far as we know, but he's been identified by relatives and by police sources as the person who they believe opened fire. And then 2 others in custody. One of them, we believe, is a man by the name of Malik Ford. He's the brother of Michael. We do not know what his role in this incident was, nor do we know entirely what the role of the third person now in custody was in this regard, with regard to this incident. We've also gotten a little bit more now on a possible motive, and the phrase we use, suicide by cop, is now being discussed as a possibility that this Mr. Ford appeared and wanted to engage police officers in gunfire so that he would himself be gunned down. That is not definitive yet, but I do have that from a number of sources. And additionally, that Mr. Ford had been involved in a domestic assault where it is alleged that he attacked his own wife in the state of South Carolina before coming here. Don't know the timing of all that, when that is alleged to have occurred, but that is now where the investigation stands. We hope to hear more officially from police later on this afternoon at a press conference if they're able to get that together. I'm on a scene right now where this happened, Barlow Road in Palmer Park, and there are 2 police buildings immediately next to each other. One is the District 3 police precinct station, and the other is police headquarters. This shootout occurred right along Barlow Road, just north or west of the District 3 police station. And as I look now, I can see little evidence signs, markers that police typically put out where they find shell casings. There are a large number of them. There is a police car that is in the middle of the road, left front wheel, tire is off the rim. A little farther on up the road, another car sits with its door open, just as it was left at the time we were told of the shootout yesterday. So investigation is moving along, but is by no means complete. The other thing that we reported last night that needs to be discussed is this: police are investigating the possibility that in the middle of this chaotic shootout, started by a gunman allegedly opening fire on a police precinct, that in the middle of all of that, that Officer Colson may actually have been struck by friendly fire, by a bullet fired by another officer. That will need to be confirmed by forensics. That is not official, but we do know from multiple sources that very distinct possibility is being investigated by the Prince George's County Police.
In the photos of Officer Colson that have been distributed by the department, Brad, and that we have shared in the media with folks at home, he's in his uniform. Is it likely? Do we know if he was in plain clothes, given that his job was?
He was definitely in plain clothes yesterday.
So one can see how there could have been some confusion if he didn't look, if he was indistinguishable from a traditional beat officer.
Yeah, that's absolutely true, and that's certainly one of the things that people are going to be looking at. I don't really want to jump ahead at this point.
Right.
You know, I think that it's a touchy topic for the police, but yes, it is. You know, we do know that Officer Colson was in fact plain clothes. He would not have been driving a marked cruiser as he arrived on the scene, and we understand that he did arrive on scene as this shootout was just underway. And as we discuss this thing, it doesn't necessarily mean that this was something that went on for many minutes. These chaotic scene shootouts can last just a matter of seconds.
Right.
An awful lot can happen, and even those involved can have a fuzzy, the fog of war, fog of battle, memory of exactly what went on. But a lot of theories at this point, and that's a possibility that police are investigating, and it's a tough one. And all of my sources say, look, that doesn't change the notion that someone came and opened fire, and they believe there are witnesses that happened. This guy came and opened fire on the police precinct, and in fact, officers who emerged from the building, none of whom were aware, other than Colson, were hit. Well, we believe Officer Colson was the only officer who was struck by gunfire. And
what's not fuzzy or foggy or still to be determined is what a great guy Officer Colson was. All of the comments that people offered in the aftermath of this incident, Brad, spoke of personal knowledge of him, his work, his demeanor, including the head of the FOP, the police union there in the county.
Right. Yeah, John Telecha, the Zeke is his nickname. Everybody knows him as Zeke. He was tearing up last night as we talked to him about this young police officer. We say young. He'd been on the force for 4 years. He had a lot of experience in 4 years in the police force, and clearly he was a good enough officer that he was chosen to be a narcotics officer, undercover, in plain clothes, not wearing a bulletproof vest, not looking like a police officer. It is dangerous work, and by all accounts, he did it in a very serious fashion. And a young man who had a very commendable path to the police. He was considered a good guy. I've seen quotes from his high school football coach. Played quarterback, great guy, leader of his team. Played a year of college football, and then stopped football and perhaps focused more on his studies. And he ended up here, and was known and liked. I had an opportunity to talk just a little while ago with a recently promoted police officer who had been in the 3rd District, and he said this was a great guy and tough guy, and guy who did his work. We understand that a girlfriend of his was a fellow officer. I should say his girlfriend was a fellow police officer. He was police through and through.
Our Maryland Bureau Chief, Brad Bell. Brad, we know you're on this story. You'll be reporting updates as you get them. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your time right now. Our Maryland Bureau Chief, Brad Bell, I know will be talking with you about this again soon. And, of course, stay with ABC 7 and News Channel 8 for continuing coverage of this tragic story. Brad, thanks. I'll talk to you soon. Back now to our conversation with Virginia State Senator Barbara Favola, Virginia State Delegate Tim Hugo. Before we go back to the work that you all did in Richmond, we should probably just give you an opportunity to comment on all that we just heard, because this was one county. This could have been any of our communities, and it's heartbreaking wherever and whenever it occurs.
Just say a prayer for the families. Many of us just went to the funeral for a Prince William police officer who was shot on our first day at work, and it's heartbreaking, and our prayers for our family.
One of the issues that you all discussed during the course of the assembly this time was of how to fill and who should fill a vacancy on the state's highest court. These things are always big because often justices serve for a long period of time.
Yes.
And this has been contentious. Delegate Hugo, you want to start on this one?
Sure. What we had here is the appointment of justices is a prerogative of the Supreme Court. A prerogative of the General Assembly. And we will normally appoint except when we're out of session. So the governor had appointed somebody, and we had asked him not to, and we made an appointment. We tried to, over the year, appoint a gentleman from Prince William County, Rossi Alston, African-American judge, on the Court of Appeals, great record. We have nothing bad to say about Judge Roush, who we did not reappoint. She was just not the pick of the General Assembly.
This has just been a very torturous process. Let's just be clear. The governor has the authority to make temporary appointments to the Supreme Court bench. And Governor McAuliffe actually consulted with the chair, who is a Northern Virginian, Dave Albo, the chair of the House Courts of Justice Committee.
Who I think was actually physically there the day that Roush was announced?
Well, yes, he may have been. But the point is that Dave Albo actually organized a letter signed by Northern Virginia lawmakers and his colleagues on the Courts of Justice Committee endorsing Justice Jane Roush. And the governor appointed her, as many governors have. For the last 100 years, 31 times governors have made temporary appointments, and the General Assembly has always chosen to elect the person that the governor has appointed on a temporary basis. And even the Republicans have said Jane Roush's credentials are impeccable. She had the highest rating from the Fairfax bar and the Virginia bar. Her temperament has been always acknowledged as fair and even-tempered. Nobody has questioned her qualifications. This whole thing is evolving around the fact that the Speaker felt slighted because the governor did not personally consult with the Speaker before the appointment was made. Other than that, there is no significant, professional, objective reason to not have elected Jane Roush.
The fact of the matter is, this is a prerogative of the General Assembly. What it came down to, it is our prerogative. It is the governor's prerogative when it's in recess. We were not in recess. We made the argument we were not in recess. We told the governor ahead of time, don't do this. It's not like he was surprised. We asked him not to. Now, Dave Alma is a good man, may have signed the letter. I think he was the only Republican that signed that letter. We did not. It was something we tried to appoint an African American that's on the Court of Appeals now that would have been an outstanding nominee. We would have had more African Americans on the Supreme Court than any state in the Commonwealth if they had appointed this man, and they did not. They chose not to, and that's fine.
Tim, the only reason we don't have Jane Roush on the bench is because some folks had their feelings hurt. And in my view, that is not sufficient reason.
No feelings hurt. It's just a different precedent.
No, that is not a sufficient reason to not elect a competent female to the Virginia Supreme Court.
This year's session was many things. Boring was not one of them. Thank you, Tim Hugo. Thank you, Barbara Favola, for coming and sharing your thoughts on what was a really interesting session in Richmond. We appreciate your time. As always, talk with you again when we return. Violence at Trump rallies. Are we at a point of real danger?